Attention, bobsled riders! You will soon be embarking on a thrilling podcast down the icy slopes of the Matterhorn. So please remain seated, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the bobsled at all times. Auf Wiedersehen!
Hello, Yodlers! We are the Matterhorn Yodlers. I'm your host today, Jackie, and we have...
Japheth.
And...
Red Panda!
And today is it's our first Pixar review.
In a
movie.
while.
Yeah.
Have we done one?
I don't think we've ever done
We didn't do Luca.
We didn't do Luca. I don't think we did Soul.
So this is our first movie Pixar review.
There we go.
And, you know, this one, there's a lot of love-hate relationship with this movie. It's the movie Turning Red. It was a direct release to Disney Plus, which there's some, drama apparently with that as well. And so we will be talking about our thoughts on the movie, the controversy of the movie, and we'll go along with that ride. So for those who haven't seen it,
Spoiler!
there will be spoilers.
But we'll give you a non-spoiler disclosure right now.
Yeah. So I'll go first. Loved it. I enjoyed it. I related to it. I thought it was funny. So.
I thought it was okay. It kept me entertained. I had it in the background for my daughter and when I was working, and I enjoyed what was going on. But I haven't really sat down and watched it all the way through with full attention. But I've seen so many times parts of it, and I've enjoyed it. I have been repulsed by it. So
it's not for me. I can tell that the movie was not made for me.
Yeah, and the audience is not for men.
Correct.
It's a girl movie. It's
yes.
I see that with Brave. I thought Brave was geared towards.
But I enjoyed Brave. I could relate to Brave to one extent or another. This one, I couldn't connect with many of the different aspects of the movie. Yes.
Okay. And we'll get into more details of that.
Yes.
So if you've seen it, carry on listen. If you haven't, pause the podcast, watch the movie, and resume with us.
Yeah, resume.
The movie, I'll just do a brief description.
You didn't welcome them back.
What?
You gotta welcome them back, those who paused it.
Oh, welcome back for those who paused it. So about the movie, so it's about a 13-year-old girl, Mei Lee.
2002.
I like
yes.
that they gave us a specific year with it.
2002 in Toronto, Canada. And she is torn between being her mother's obedient daughter and the chaos of her youth. As if that were not enough, when she gets excited, she turns into a big red panda.
Yeah, there's a family history to that.
Yes. So the director of the movie is the same director that directed the short Bao.
Love that short.
That's a great short. I love the short.
And so this was her first project. It was her baby.
First director
project, yeah. It was, the leadership team was an all-female team.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yep.
Which is the first of Pixar. So, that's awesome.
And it's the last. No, I'm just joking.
No.
I don't know anything about what they're doing in their leadership.
So let's talk about some positives.
Sure.
As
she stares at me like, positives, Peter. Let's be positive.
I was impressed with some of the animation techniques. There was definitely moments in the movie where it was just like, oh, this is where the animators were showing off.
I think so. Oh, okay.
So there was there's the cooking scene where the dad's cooking, and it's just like focusing on like the vegetables like tossing around
And the steam in his glasses.
Yes, and I was like, oh, and then they pan out and it's just him cooking in his home kitchen, but they make it so like dramatic, and I just loved that scene.
We love watching people cook in movies. I think I was listening on NPR and they said that, like, we love watching. We don't like people like eating. We like watching people cook.
Yes.
Well, I just love that, and like it made it look so dramatic, like it was like a professional kitchen, and then it pulled out. It was just like a dad cooking a home cooked dinner meal. And it was just, the animation was good. Did you notice the animation with the eyebrows? There were a lot.
Yeah.
There's a very emphasis on the eyebrows, and the eyebrows look great.
Now I'm watching your eyebrows go up and down.
They're very realistic, and so I thought the animation's kind of grown to be more realistic, and the animation style is a little bit different.
Realistic in the sense of like movement
And like patchiness, unevenness.
And they talk about that a little bit in the making of
Yes.
Of the movie, where they basically took some of their own and they would look at each other as animators and be like, oh, your eyebrows, you've got this little weird patch thing, let's put that on the character. And like, oh, and this other person, oh, you've got these cheekbones like this, oh, we're gonna put that. And they kind of like put everyone's perceived flaws into this character to make them as cute as possible, sort of thing.
Yeah, and it put them...
Or at least what they themselves thought were flaws to themselves, but other people thought were as cute.
Yeah.
And it makes the characters a little bit more realistic with different flaws, and they're not that like perfect like animation Disney style.
Blemish free.
Yes. What were some like favorite positive moments?
I like the color scheme.
Yes, I would probably say that was probably like, it was a very pretty movie.
It looked
pretty,
very
beautiful.
I like the sceneries. I like how they encompass the city. Like, it's not like scene by scene. They're taking you through the neighborhood, through the experience, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. It didn't feel so restricted in space for the story. I also like the cuteness of the panda.
Oh yeah.
That definitely
Adorable. You're just like, oh, we're gonna have a stuffed plushie soon with that.
Oh, totally. Like those things were definitely.
So when a girl turns
cute.
like, when a girl has her first period, you know, like, here you go. It's like the panda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Peter, what were some positives you enjoyed of it?
I mean, like we've kind of all talked about it. I mean, it was a very beautiful looking movie. The panda was adorable. Like the overall atmosphere of the setting was great. Like I
enjoyed the 90s like throwback, the Tamagotchi.
Yeah. I just remember Austin like would kill his sisters Tamagotchi by two of their. Oh, that was fun.
The boy band craze, that was fun.
Yes, that was. I remember that like when I was a teenager. It was like I'm older than. In 2002, I would be getting close to graduating at this time, but I remember prior to that, you had like your NSYNCs, your Backstreet, your 98 Degrees. Right. Like they, just hearing that music, I was like, oh, this kind of takes me back to that.
Well, the original promotion, they used Backstreet Boys for the teaser for it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and I enjoy the main character, Mei Li. She's such an outgoing spirit, just like comfortable with like who she was or like in that moment.
She was super confident. Like, I've got my life, I'm doing good, everything's great. I do what Mom said.
And like she knew. And that was like, and that's kind of shows like the progress of the movie. Like she was very comfortable in her lifestyle.
She knew how to stay in her lane.
Yes.
And life was good. But even though she had like things that would schism outside of that lane, but she was, because of her mother, she was like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
And we see that in some of those scenes, especially with the mermaid.
Yes.
That was hilarious.
Yes,
You can
that's
just feel that
great.
cringe humor where you're like, oh, I want to die right now. Because everybody would like have that moment where you're like, you know, like when you go to the mall and you're like, I'm going to walk ahead so people don't think
Yes.
those are my parents.
Oh,
like
I
every
know.
teenager does that.
Oh,
kinda.
absolutely.
I don't think I ever did that, but I know you did.
Oh, of course.
I think there was a part where we went to a movie and you're all like, you guys go ahead of me. And we're like, okay, Jackie, we're too embarrassing.
So it's just one of
So
those
we
things.
walked into the movie theater going, we're Jackie's family!
That was the time, you know?
I think that's just natural as teenagers.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're not cool. Oh.
It was just more of like, oh, like someone I know is gonna see me like spending a Friday night with my family when I should be partying or being with cool kids, you know?
We're not cool.
No.
I wasn't there. Jackie would have hung out with us if I was there, right?
Oh,
no,
totally.
no, not at all. She'd be
Probably
like, no,
not.
I wouldn't stay
She's
away.
like, I'm not even going to the movies tonight.
Just leave me alone.
But no, I think she represented like a great like teenage girl. And then of course
That transition.
she hits a moment where a little chaos gets into her life.
A little.
A lot of chaos. She turns into a red panda,
Yeah.
and she's gotta gauge that.
Yes.
And gauge that change in her life. And yes, there's a references of like turning red is like having your period, and this movie is a coming of age movie. But I think the panda is much more than representing a girl getting a period or going through
It's
puberty.
definitely part of the message.
It is part. I think it
It's-
is. I mean, where the
yes.
mother like was all like, "Oh, it's time,"
Right.
you know, and that was that embarrassing. Like she follows her to school, or not just follow. She knows where her daughter goes to school.
Yeah.
But like she was hiding in a bush and like, where does she go to this school at? Oh, is it over here on this street? No. And she makes the big old scene when
Yes.
she's just like,
She went Beverly Goldberg style.
yes,
Like,
that's definitely
She
it.
did.
like, oh, I've got your pet.
My smoochie.
Yes. But I felt like the panda represented more than just like getting your period or going through puberty, but just like gauging adulthood and I don't know, the
There's
chaos
the management
of that.
of emotion, because how do you
Yes.
control the panda? You had to learn how to control
Yeah.
those outbursts, or or it will feed it and it turns into a monster, as we see at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, because if you get those emotions, then you're just completely irrational and you become a smelly, angry, large panda.
Panda, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go into some negatives.
Come on, Peter, start us off. What did you not
Start
like
us
about
off. Yeah.
Okay. So, like, the parts I feel like there were too many messages too many messages that I feel like that were trying to be told throughout the whole movie. Like, there's like, okay.
Kind of like how Star
there's
Wars
a coming of
and
it.
stuff like-
Well, the thing is, like, I'm okay with there being more than one message being thrown at you, but there's usually, like, one dominant, like, this is the point.
it? Okay.
I feel like there wasn't one. There was like 50, and so it's like I left feeling like, what is it that they were trying to tell me here? Like, is it, you got to be yourself? Is it, separation from family? Is it balancing family and friends? Is it, there's just so many things, like, I just couldn't get, like, what's the point of the message? Because, like, there are a variety of different, like, movies that are very similar. Even Pixar movies that totally are very similar to this. We got Luca, we've got Brave, we've got Inside Out, we've got, like...
Yeah, you got...
like, all of those different things. But they all kind of had...
Coco's like that, too.
Coco, exactly. Coco. And I love all of those movies, but I feel like this one, for some reason, didn't hit the mark that the others did. I just
so
feel
then you
like...
missed the overarching theme.
Right.
I can see that. It is chaotic where it's like you're dealing with a monster and like everyone's got to work together, and where it's all like, all right, well, conceal, don't feel, kind of like like
Yeah.
Frozen reference with it, but then she can, exploit it for this, for money, and like I can see where it can be confusing. There's a friend's message too, like, oh, you betrayed us by like
right. They just threw all
making
these
us the
things
bad
at
guy
you,
with your
and you're
parents.
just like, well, what am I supposed to like feel leaving this thing? Is it my panda, my choice? Because that was the last basic line of the movie.
Yeah.
Is that the overall theme? My panda, my choice.
So there was a lot of different messages.
Right.
Yes, I agree. There was a lot of different messages. But I think that also brings it more interesting to watch it multiple times. So I watched it so far twice, and I enjoyed it better the second time because I got.
And I was like that with Encanto. Like,
and
Encanto was one that really like. It was like the fourth, fifth time where I'm going, oh, this is a really good movie.
And that might be the case. I haven't watched it enough for me to really like grown attached. But I mean, there was So we can move on to other things later. But finish your thought. We cut you off there.
I've got something. I'm not a fan of anime, and so there's the moments of the anime eyes and stuff, and I'm just. It's an overacting.
Yes.
And so one thing with the main character, which I didn't care for, was I felt like I was watching Disney Channel teenager actors, like Miley Cyrus, like
yes, absolutely.
over the top, like Boy Meets World towards the end with overacting Eric and Corey, where it's just too much. I mean, I get it, like the emotions ride like high and low for a teenager, but for me, just the I'm in love with them. Big cutesy eyes, and it's like that's something I don't care for in anime. I'm not a fan of anime. Like I appreciate the art. The art, it's an art form, and it serves its purpose for people. I just don't care for it.
That's interesting. I did not get that feel at all.
And they even talk about it in the thing where like, oh yeah, we got to throw in these references of anime, and I'm like, I could totally, I don't know the style, but there were moments where I'm going, oh, this is an anime moment. Yes. They're doing an homage to like what they enjoy and their influences in their craft and art. And for me, it doesn't really stick for me. That's why it's like I won't probably be rating it super high. It's not Rocketeer level. I'm throwing it out there. It's no Rocketeer. All right.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. That was another one of my points. Is I just felt like the anime felt not natural to the world.
Yeah, it comes in like. Yeah,
it was just too much, and it was like this is Pixar's attempt to do an anime-ish movie, and it was just like
I think it was an attempt, yeah, for sure.
It's just like
it wasn't. It's not an anime movie, but it has anime like flares, or techniques.
Which, if it not in an anime, doesn't fit. It doesn't look right.
I disagree.
I thought it was okay. Like they popped it in, and it's like. For those that will enjoy this, they'll enjoy it even more. But for fans like me who are people that love Disney movies and Pixar, it's one of those like, oh, you did anime. Great. Those will love it. Me, I'm going to be like, meh. It took me out just for a moment. And then they leave the scene and then I can continue on with the story.
I didn't feel like it was a disruption in the movie, the anime moments. I enjoyed it. So, yeah.
What was something else that you didn't... Was there something in there that you were like, meh?
I
didn't like the villain kid. He was a little snot-nosed kid.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, I'm a fan. And you're like, of course you're a fan.
And they like...
Give me another reason to hate you.
Right.
well, we can talk about that. I liked in that where they... you have the villain kid, right? Or the brat kid. But, I mean, in high school, there's always that type of kid in high school. But at the end, when they see him at the concert, it's not like they made fun of him. They embraced him. His uniqueness.
Yeah.
They didn't judge him. So, I thought that was
I thought they judged him. They're all like, what? You're fans? Like, don't tell anyone.
Right.
But then they embraced his love of the music, too.
Okay.
They were all friends at the end.
So what do you guys think of the mother? Do you think she was over the top?
It was way over the top.
You think she was a way like a caricature that was just like on a scale like with Goldberg mom and her like being like
I think
extreme.
she's worse.
She thinks she's like way over
worse
the top.
than Beverly.
Well,
Beverly.
Yes.
I gotta think of it as it's a perspective of a mom from a teenager's point of view.
Okay, so if you come from that perspective, I could see the dramatics because I remember.
It's dramatic.
You remember when I used to tease you in the car?
Yeah.
With like, mom would be like, "Oh, what do you want for dinner?" And you're like, "I don't know, mom." And I'd be like, and then I would do like, "Yeah, mom. Why are you so stupid? Like, she doesn't know. Get off her back. You're so." And mom would be like, "You're right, Jackie. I'm so stupid." And you would be like, "I hate you, mom." It was just like to the extreme. So if you have that perspective, I can see that from telling the story where it's like to you in that moment you thought mom was being ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went back and we're like, we played into it like, oh yes, why are we so, and like I could see where you could look at the character and like I guess you could see your parents being like over the top.
Right.
But again, as you're an adult, you're watching this, you're like, oh my gosh, you're too much. You're like, it's just like that one person that's all sunshine. You're like, too much of you gives me like skin cancer. I can't do this.
Right. And so I felt like it was the perspective of what the teenager thought the mom was acting.
And so this is where, again, I'm going to draw another comparison. Because, again, Brave. Okay? So for the story of Brave, we got the same thing. Where we got the overbearing mom pressuring the daughter to do things, and the daughter not wanting to comply.
But she wasn't a queen. Queen is
Yes.
poised. The way
Poised.
she's like, I feel like I need to sit up now as I'm talking about her. Oh my goodness, she's just, you do this and you hold yourself, but like.
But that's what the movie was about. It was about the mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
This one really wasn't. We didn't get really the mom side of the story except for that like 2 seconds at the very end where you're like, oh, you were once like me, and then we moved on.
Yeah, it's
And
kind
so
of
like
hurt at
I didn't
the
get
end.
the closure with like mom growing as a person.
I can see that.
And so, like, again, yeah, we got the perspective of the daughter of the mom, but we didn't really get the mom's perspective of the situation as well. We just saw her get angry, and now I'm a big angry panda.
Maybe that's a
And
cultural aspect.
and
Within
totally,
the
and
Chinese
that plays a big,
immigrant experience. Of
absolutely.
Just, of having, that relation where some things are just unspoken. Like, you go through it and you're like, we all went through it. We all know what happened. And we'll make our changes the way, it's not that loving embrace, that maybe our gringo like culture has. I say gringo because it's just what I call white people is like the gringo experience,
right.
Yeah, I guess maybe, I don't know. I enjoyed the mother. I thought she was okay. Like, it wasn't like a
Alexandra, like. I thought she was
the
great.
actor was great.
She did a wonderful job playing the role. Absolutely.
As far as the overall character, no, she was not a main character. I don't think the main purpose was a full-on mother-daughter relationship. I think that was a part of the message, but I don't think.
And that's part of Peter's point is
Right.
like, or what is the story really coming at? Is it getting clumped in with different stories and getting kind of lost
I almost
on the
feel
way?
like this was, and I don't want this to sound like it's like a dig at the people who wrote this thing, but like I feel like this was like a rough draft of like, we've got all these ideas. Okay, how do we make all these ideas work? Not realizing like we should probably take some
People
of
had
this
that
stuff
same
out.
complaint about Star Wars, and that's why Star Wars
Sure.
didn't do so well, because it's all like, you're letting messages write the story instead of
Right.
stories writing the message.
Correct.
I could see where people can come to that
And they even
conclusion.
kind of make a point of saying exactly that at the very beginning of the making, where he says, oh, I really wanted to do this, and then I come up with an excuse as to why that's in there. And it's like, okay.
Okay.
And so, like, I just feel like the direction they took to writing this movie wasn't the direction that was going to appeal to more people. And I feel like this movie doesn't appeal to a lot of people. I understand there are going to be millions of people that like it, but I feel that there's going to be more people that don't, because I feel like it's a very niche appeal.
I agree. I do agree that it's not going to appeal to everyone. There's a certain focus it was for. But I still think overall, like, there's there's so many other like little messages in the movie that people are kind of blinded by like the obvious message
What is the obvious message?
of I
to
guess
you, what is the obvious message? What was the big message for you?
of, like,
that way we could track on exactly
of
what
like
we're discussing.
the coming of age story.
So the coming of age story and managing
Yes.
the panda.
Yes. Okay. I would say that's probably the most obvious
Sure.
message and story, but there were so many other like side little stories, like the relationship between her and her Maylee's and her dad's relationship. I thought
I
there
kind
was
of floshed over that.
there was
like
it was
maybe
very
like
subtle.
1 or 2 scenes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, those scenes were
great.
so great.
I agree. I love
there were
the
so
whole
like sweet and tender moments, and I love the scene where he's talking about Mayleen's mom and like her turning around and was all like, oh, like her parents, her mother did not approve of us because of me. And I, there's really some sweet and tender moments of how like a father should, I don't know, treat their daughter.
Okay, I gotta take notes.
No, yeah, it was. I did enjoy all the scenes with the dad. The dad was a great role.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get a lot of screen time, but I understand because they put in a lot of other things in there. And so the direction necessarily wasn't about family, even though that was kind of what they were hinting at the very beginning, that this is a very family thing, but then it didn't turn that direction. And so, I don't know. But I did enjoy the family.
Oh, the ants.
The ants were great.
Oh, the ants
thought
were
they
so
were
fun.
Yeah, very good caricatures of like the craziness of like different types of ants and what they do.
I'd probably say the one anime moment that I did enjoy was when they all like turned into pandas, where they like
oh yes,
like mashing their jewelry that's holding their panda, and they're like and they transform like Power Rangers. Like I thought that was cool.
That's
like,
fun.
That was a fun scene. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say the one line that did make me laugh out loud, because it was kind of like an absurd moment, was when Mom attacked the concert and everyone's running away, and they just have this one person going, "I want my money back!" And it's like, what? That's your first thought, running away from a giant panda? I want my money back!
Just sometimes those little lines that break up the moment of just the chaos.
I love the one liner like where the mom is a big panda and she's like tearing up the concert grounds and she's like, "Go home. Where are your parents? What are you wearing?" And it just kind of shows like how times have changed. Even like when you're
Are you that person now at the grocery store like, put some clothes on?
But like I think as like a parent, I mean I'm not a parent, but like I think parents are always like questioning like today's like changes of like what is this music, and like, so I just thought that was funny.
I thought it tells the changing of age and kind of the chaos of parents trying to manage and handle their kids. I thought it did all right, and this again is probably not why I'm going to rate it super high, because the story is similar, but it didn't latch on to me,
How did your kids respond to the movie?
Well, liked it.
Yeah, you said my daughter watched it, and she'll watch it for a little bit. It just depends on her mood when it comes to watching.
My kids enjoy it, but it's a big fluffy panda. Like they got into it. I mean, do they understand what they're watching? Probably not.
No.
Because again, it's geared towards that tweener age group of like, this is what you're going through, right?
And you're not alone,
right.
or you're a parent going like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this, or we
right.
can joke like it seems like you've been able to pull in your teenage years.
And I knew out of everyone, you were going to have the highest opinion, like positive opinion about this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously as a female, I've gone through all those things, those like sketchbooks of boys and like
Do you still have those sketchbooks?
I
I have my mermaid one.
So I
love.
no. So like I never drew because I was not an artist.
They're like, I love this person. Like, oh, he looks like a beast. They're like, it's a human being.
But I mean, we all like wrote and passed notes in school, or
Well, we're the last generation that really passes notes and wrote those.
And then there was like a notebook that all of my friends would share, and we would like write.
Is it the
notes.
shade book for Mean Girls?
The burn book?
The burn book.
No, there was no burn book, but like we made like a comic series, and we all take turns making a comic and stuff. And there's just like fun things, and so definitely, personally, I pulled a lot from this movie, and I could relate to a lot to this movie.
I do say, I think teenage girls have more fun than teenage boys.
Oh, I totally agree.
I was watching this, it's like, oh man, it's like, they really know how to have fun with each other. Well, guys have fun competing against each other.
Yep.
And so we aren't creative together.
Right.
But but women are so creative together. Like, the only thing guys are creative was like, remember when your friend Austin came and made that movie?
Yes.
And showed her parents, and you're like, not appropriate.
Why did you show this to my parents?
So they had like action figures where they're using the fog
think
machine.
Think Robot Chicken.
Yeah.
He made his own Robot Chicken.
With a fog machine
show.
and character.
Yes.
And you can kind of figure out what this fog was for.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, guys, and so I see this movie and it goes, oh, this shows the difference between guys and girls really well. Where girls are like, oh, let's work together and we do this. No, have fun. Yeah.
But, my husband, he really enjoyed the movie, and he really was similar. The things that Mei Ling did, he's like, yeah, I totally did that.
Yeah, I think that the universal, like, trying to, like, please your parents and trying to fit in that perfect role.
Just looking for acceptance. And
I think that's common for a lot of. I mean, obviously you have the rebels that no matter what, they're just going to rebel against whatever their parents tell them. But, for the most part, if you have an obedient child, I could see them falling into that role. But when they kind of have their own kind of creative, schism from it, that can be a real shock to the parents, and especially, from the caricatures and the stereotypes people talk about, like tiger moms,
Yep.
that, I think this movie really, like, notches or plays into it. Obviously I didn't have an Asian American or Asian immigrant mother, putting, the fire to the feet to get things done and be perfect to get into schools and do all the extracurriculars. So that can be lost on someone outside of the culture without being too stereotypical and that.
Yeah. So as far as there's a lot of
what's controversy
about this of like some of the things that people were bringing up was like, it's focusing on like it's okay to disobey your parents.
Yes, my wife kind of had an issue with that aspect of things, where she felt like at the very beginning of the movie, the main character, she was looked down upon by her friends because she was being a good daughter for her family. Like, she's like, no, I can't do karaoke. I've got to go clean the temple. It's like, oh, you've brainwashed. She's like, I like doing this. And, like, the friends kind of, like, shamed her for wanting to do something with her
Yeah,
mom.
but look back in your life. The fun things were done when you broke the rules. What
Yes.
stories do you tell? You tell the stories when you're
Sure.
like, do you remember the time when we got in the car, we drove around when I was 15? Or do you remember when we went teeping? Like, that's what the fun part of being a teenager. That's what groups of friends
But
do.
it was just like one of those moments where it's just like
As a
parent, you realize like you want your kids to be obedient, and like this almost the one of the messages that's not clear is like, well, what is the role of a daughter in a family? In the end, is it just to like, I'm just gonna go do what I want now? Or is family still important? There was that conflict of miscommunication as to like, what's the point?
Yeah, I remember hearing somebody talk about like like you remember the Goofy movie. We had neighbors across the street where
Yes.
Josh and Chris and their dad, took the second son. They went to go see the Goofy movie, and they walked out. And the guy was like, "I don't like how he is talking to his
son.
dad.
Yeah,
His
dad. Yeah.
He's just like totally disrespectful." And like he's manipulative and trying to lie to him.
And that's why we weren't allowed to watch Simpsons growing up.
We weren't allowed because Bart, but then like that changed in the sense of like how the show was written. It wasn't about Bart. It turned into it was about Homer.
Yep.
But we didn't get the chance to watch that. And I get that when you're young, you don't want something kind of influence that. And so I could see where if you're looking for that message, but the question is, are teens looking at those messages or something like that? It's hard to see.
And it's also like really one of those things where, like, for example, like my kids are still really young, very impressionable. They're not necessarily going to pick up the fact that this is a girl going through hormones. That, oh, well, she could do it. I can do it now. It's like, well, you're not at where they're at yet, And so, like, there's that mindset as well where, like, this is also being presented to children that can be very impressionable and think that it's okay to lash out at your parents without understanding the full context of the situation.
But then in other movies...
But it wouldn't be unrealistic. It wouldn't be realistic to a teenage experience without a kid lashing out at a parent at any time. Like,
yeah.
And a parent's like, what do I do? Like, your wife was telling us a story about, like, they're at Disneyland,
sure.
And a teenager just, like, blurts out something that's completely, like, that is rude.
Right.
And, like, they just go, I'll handle it later. And so I can see where it can be tough, like, how do you depict a true teenager in this moment and also convey a message? And I think you bring up a good point. Do they really address, like, did they do the talking down? And, like, if they did, would that really be a good part of the story? And so I can see that is a lost message that can be impressionable. That's not, it doesn't help a parent out.
Right.
But for story-wise, would it help the story to go like, hey, you're grounded for talking to me like that?
The thing is, we didn't get not necessarily a scolding.
But that's like a moment
or
a pushback.
Hey, let's talk about this. We didn't really get that moment of like the mother-daughter bond. We didn't really get that for a conclusion. It just ended with like, okay, we're okay now. And it's all like, well, last thing was that you guys were fighting at a concert, and now you're best of friends. Like, there was no resolution.
So
okay,
I think
that's the
but
point.
It's not really like...
And so you never saw that.
But would that... Getting that ending, would that really justify how the child is really acting out and being disobedient?
It would have been a complete message. You
would have gotten the message that you wanted completed.
Yeah.
That's what I'm coming at.
But
like, you saw that message. I didn't necessarily pick up on. Sure. I was like, oh, it's just a teenager being a teenager.
Right.
So,
and I got that message too. I'm just saying, and it goes back.
Got to pick your battles.
My argument goes all the way back to what I said before. They had so many things that they were trying to say, and there's just not enough time to.
And I think that's where you picked your wife and you picked up on that message, and I go, oh, I can see that now, and it's a matter of okay, how can you address the dynamics of parenting and teenage,
there's
interactions.
There's a lot of trend of in Disney movies of disobeying children.
Oh, absolutely. And I just feel like this didn't do it right.
I just felt like this movie was just more obvious than the other movies, and that's why people are
obvious in what way?
It's more of like an obvious...
This is about your period. No.
No, but just like, it was more of an obvious of like, teenage girl rebelling against her parent than like, I don't know, than a girl trying to find a new adventure, but more of...
Maybe that is the message. Like maybe if your parents are so ridiculous, you have to rebel and you have to address the issue eventually, or you just get suffocated being stuck in the role of like what your parents want you to be instead of being stuck as who you are. I don't know. Just maybe that is like one of the... Again, as you brought up the point, there's a lot of messages, but again, turning from like a child to a young adult, that is chaotic.
Oh, absolutely.
So-
I'm not gonna dispute that. It absolutely is.
It's just hard. you
And
know,
like it
the-
does do a good job of representing the chaos of the situation. I just don't feel like the way they executed the resolution worked.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to look for that in the ending of like resolving the messages and coming to it. I mean, I think they addressed the big one of like, hey, mom's a big crazy panda,
Right.
and we need to control this. And we learned about like how the family history works, but you know, and you get to like my panda, I get to choose what I want.
Right.
Like I know traditionally we conceal, don't feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, break it out when like, hey, the hunt are coming over the mountains or
Right.
coming over the wall. But it's. Yeah, it is interesting just to see. I'll have to watch again with this input of just like,
So-
are these messages conveyed or is it just part of the chaos?
So how is this storyline different than, say, Luca? Luca was told not to go above water. He disobeyed his
Get it.
parents. He
For Senor Vesta,
Yes.
Vespa.
Well, because again, the message was pretty simple. Like there wasn't like
for Luca.
Luca.
yeah, like what he wanted. Pretty simple. Like he wanted to experience. He wanted a Vespa. He wanted to go right out, and then he learned. Oh, I can learn, and it was just about him wanting to explore the world
Against his parents' will.
against his parents' will, or yeah, for that case in point, and that was pretty much it. It was a pretty simple. And granted, I don't have Luca ranked very high on my.
I like
On the list.
Luca.
And I like
the more I
Luca
watch
too,
Luca, the
right?
more I like. Oh, this is so.
I just
so good.
when
I
it came
like
to Luca, like I felt like Luca was a short that was made too long.
I agree.
And like and again like it's more simple than Turning Red. Turning Red tries to handle all the issues,
Yeah.
but and then in the end it's like it was resolved. How?
I don't-
and so that's where I'm like,
And then I can look at it like, really, and in the end, you go through your teenage years, and then when you become an adult, you really do realize things aren't resolved. And we do get that
Yeah,
with the
sure.
mother and her mother.
right.
And her mother's like, oh, it's just the cycle that just keeps going. And so everyone's like, hey, you got parent issues? Hey, it's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
That's why we
And-
still have therapists.
And you've
and
noticed
job security.
recently there's been a lot of these like issues with your parents with a lot of these Disney movies lately. We have Turning Red, we got Encanto, issues with overbearing Coco.
Little Mermaid, you know.
Like I think and all these movies, they're all really good. I just felt like this one just fell short.
Yeah, I could see that. We ready to rate it? You got something else, Jackie?
No, let's rate it.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I give about 2.5. I think, but I give it potential to grow to a 3. It's just going to take time for me to watch it.
Sometimes it takes a little bit to get used to what's being displayed.
I'm coming to terms with that, like a first time judgment of something. It's not necessarily good because I watch Encanto and I was
Same
like,
here.
here's the song. I don't know if I really like this, but now when it comes on, it's like, this song is great.
Yes.
And it's not because it's like become popular. It's just because it's just, I've watched more and more
You
of the
understand
show.
it a little better.
Yeah, with a little kid, you're watching the same shows over and over, and each time it's like, I don't remember this scene. Oh, I guess it was here, and I missed it, and then just the little details that pop up. And for this one, yeah, I think it's just going to take a little bit more time. But there are certain things that I brought up negatively, the overacting, and the mom's not a fun character to watch. And so if there's too much of one character, it can really pull me out, and that's just me. So 2.5, potential to grow to 3.
Peter?
I'm giving it a 1.
Whoa.
Like this is like Good Dinosaur Cars 2 level.
Whoa.
I don't mind Cars 2 in comparison. Like,
Whoa.
Like
Okay.
I have
Good
this low.
Wow.
Like my desire to rewatch this is like minimal to none.
really don't want to give it a chance to really like work
Really?
it through. Maybe
As of where I stand right now, that's where I have it in my
Okay.
mind.
Okay. I give it like a 3.25.
I could see that.
Like I agree, it wasn't like the best Pixar film ever, but I mean I watched it the second time and I enjoyed it better the second time. I can't say that for like Good Dinosaur, like down on that level. So for me, of course, I could tell this movie was made for like a person like in my age, and it connected with me more. So yes.
Do you think maybe a first time director was are we seeing like a first time director
It could
struggle
It could
with
be.
like pushing it over to the next level?
It could be that.
Because you're seeing like the old ones where you're getting people that prior experience with directing, and they use the shorts to like really test out the talent pool.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this was good. You got something great here, and then they give the reins to somebody, and they're just like, nah, like it just didn't work. And like there's factors. You're like in the middle of your production, and you're doing COVID
hits.
COVID hits. It's like, okay, that could be a factor. Or are we experiencing something with Pixar where the
There's a
leadership's
change.
changing? Old school is retiring.
Yes.
And you're seeing the people
And-
that were mid management or mid level getting up into this production level, and
What the 3 most recent like Pixar's like Soul,
Luca
Lucas Pixar,
and Onward.
Onward, and then
is
Turning
Luca
Red.
Disney or is it
Luca
Pixar?
is Pixar.
Yeah, it's Pixar because there's no music. I mean, there's a little bit of music, but it's not like
Right.
let's do a stage production
And you look back at like all like of those recent movies, I wouldn't say they're like top Pixar movie status.
No,
I think the last really great Pixar movie was Coco.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that
but
was-
the thing is, that's probably one of the best. Like
Correct.
we talk about, it's one of the best
Correct.
ones, and it comes on, and you're like, this movie's amazing.
Right.
And so it's are we in a transition phase where some leadership has been forced out, and some have been like just retired? I mean, they've been doing movies for 30 years now, and they're like, hey, I'm done.
We're at a new wave for Pixar, so it's not the Pixar that it once was. Like,
Right.
I don't know if we're gonna get another like Wall-E sort of movie.
No.
Like, are we gonna get more movies where it's directors telling childhood stories?
And that's one of those things. Like,
Yeah.
this is. As you watch the making of, you really get that driven, like, I'm pulling from me, and it's like, that's
Yes.
great, this is your story, but your story is not going to relate to everyone. Like, Peter, it did not. And for me, it's like, oh, okay, I label as like, oh, this is like a girl movie, and I can see where some teens can get into it, and like kids, like my daughter loves watching just like kids, like she loves Luca because she's watching kids play and do things. But yeah, have we lost the storytelling to, let me tell my personal story with like little messages coming from above.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting the next few movies coming out with Pixar is like, is this the new trend? And
Peter, do you see it going down? I know you have one movie, and then one movie doesn't dictate like the whole direction.
right.
Like we'll have like 1 week where like we didn't have a good showing on our podcast,
Right.
but like the next week we're like, dude, we're rock stars.
Right, right.
So we're like, are we in the cusp of like a Coco or Ratatouille?
I think we're in a transitional period, and I don't think Pixar has figured out what it's going to become yet.
It's tough because their movies take 5 years.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it may take a while to
Correct.
steer the ship to a new direction.
You can take a look at Disney Animation. Disney Animation does the same cycle where
Oh, absolutely.
it does like 6 movies that are amazing, and then it has another 5 that are like, meh, and then
We
it
lost
goes
our
boom.
way.
Right. And so like, I think in my opinion, we might be in that cycle when it comes to Pixar.
It's got that recession.
And maybe one of those reasons why Disney puts it immediately onto Disney Plus and not into theaters. That I'm not even sure Disney feels confident that it'll make money.
Well, it's tough now with movies. Like everyone in the movie industry is just like, I mean, the only one you're going to get people in are Marvel, and yeah, that's it. Marvel and superheroes
The
are the
big
only ones that are
block,
getting
yeah.
in there.
But Encanto did really well.
I mean, I don't know like how well it did. I
It
heard
did-
like
it
it
did
did all
really-
right,
it did
but
really
then
well.
like
When it
then
hit
Disney Plus,
it
then
exploded.
they brought it back into the movie. They're just like, oh, here we go again.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
plus there's not much competition in the theaters. They're like, oh, please give us anything with success.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's weird to judge like box office now and like
It is.
movie.
It's-
Like now
it's
we're in
hard.
an age where like, wow, I really need to start judging things, like buy the content, you know, instead of just like the flashiness of the movie and like what the reviews like. I hear reviewers like, this movie's amazing. It's like, that means nothing to me anymore because
absolutely
like everyone's just like, oh, The Last Jedi was amazing, and I watched, I was like, yeah, that was great, and I watched the second time, I'm like, I don't know, like that's what it's like. It's just.
Well, I remember when we watched Last Jedi because we watched it together, and I remember you and Dad going, "That was awesome," and I left going,
Yeah,
I was surprised that you guys were really into it, and I'm actually more into it now than I was when I first watched it. And you've kind of been like, "It's not very good anymore."
Well, I've like after studying that stuff, it's just, I could see the turn of it, and so like what I'm coming to terms with is I see a movie and it's my like favorite, and I'm like, that was amazing, and then it sits at me and like burrows in, like, what about this side? And then I watch it, and I'm like, oh, I don't like this at all. So. You know, and that's what I said. With this movie, it may just take some time for me to watch through it.
And if you give me maybe like, if you ask me in a year and we do a refresh on our Pixar list thing, I might have a little higher up than Cars 2 and Last Dinosaur. But that's honestly like I would.
That's where you stand right now.
I want to watch good dinosaur.
I would definitely say this is on the lower half of that list. It's in that bottom 5 for sure. I think this movie, for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the sense, like, when you say Cars 2, it's like, I don't know, which movie would I want? Do I watch Cars 2 or do I want to watch this movie? And that's like, oh, that shows me that it's near the bottom. You know, like.
Yeah, and I think this movie is just going to be different from everybody.
Correct. I think so. Yeah, I think that's
this
and
is
that's
going to be
why this is like a big like talking, a lot of controversy because there's a lot of polar opposites on this movie.
Even with the three of us who grew up in the same house, we all have 3 different perspectives on this movie, which I found really interesting.
Yeah. So let us know your
Who
thoughts.
was right?
No.
Who's right? No.
That's the thing. No one's right.
Who really needs to go into counseling because of father and mother Yodas? That's what we really need to get. No.
That's the great thing. No one's right. This is all our personal opinion and our feelings and thoughts. And so let us know what your thoughts are. There's a Yodeler probably would have a similar opinion as you. And so let us know your thoughts.
And it's okay that you have a different opinion.
Oh, absolutely. We welcome all opinions. And so follow us on our Facebook, our Instagram. We're on Twitter. You can email us at matterhornyolers@gmail.com. And that's it. Have a magical day.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Matterhorn Yodelers. Please remember before your bobsled comes to a complete stop to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And remember...
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.